Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. I'm sort of laughing here because I get started and I didn't push the right button and realize it. And I've been done this like hundreds of times and I don't know why. Anyway, Amy Birkel is my guest today, Heritage Communities, amazing leader, been doing this for a long time. This is going to be a great conversation. I'll learn some stuff, you'll learn some stuff, but before we get started, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Amy, welcome. I sort of start with the same question for every guest. Tell me a little bit about who you are, what you're passionate about, and what the big problems are that you are solving, how you're changing the world.
Oh gosh, well, we'll just start off easy here, Steve. Thanks.
That's right.
It's great to see you again. We've known each other for a long time, so it's a pleasure to be here. Gosh, who am I? I was just at an event with other operators this past week, and the speaker said, all of us just kind of fall into senior living through other avenues. And is there anybody in the room that, grew up saying, I want to work in senior living? And I kind of sat there like, well, that's me. That is exactly my story. I grew up in rural Nebraska, and as a teenager, there's not a lot of employment opportunities besides babysitting and detasseling corn. And so I got a job working in our little nursing home, washing dishes. And I would get snippets of time with the residents. And from that is where my passion for being with older adults really came from. I went on and got my CNA and my Med-Aid, excuse me, and then fell into leadership. And about the time I was graduating college is when assisted living was actually just developing, right? It was, late 90s and becoming licensed entities in states. And so I really went from skilled care to the assisted living route, and have spent a lot of my time in leadership, executive directors, and the home office here now at Heritage Communities in Omaha.
And so tell me a little bit about Heritage Communities. How many communities, what's your geographic footprint?
Yes, so we're actually at 24 now. I think we were maybe like 7 or 8 when I started. So super excited. We're in 6 states. Majority of our communities have independent assisted living and memory care. And then we've also looked out into home health and hospice, providing those additional services for our residents.
So I did a story. I interviewed you back in 2019, I think, and you went out and you went and lived in each of your communities for a night. And that's been like, 7 years now? So it's been a long time. What lessons did you learn that still stick with you today?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was a pretty awesome opportunity I had. We called it 13 First Days. And I've been in my communities hundreds and hundreds of times, but I went and lived as a resident in each community, right? I had my weight taken and my vitals, and I gave them my Advil, and I wore a pendant, and I went into the dining room not really knowing anybody. And the greatest takeaway still is the small things are everything. The little details, right? The associates knowing how the resident likes their bed made and how much that means to them and how important the associate resident relationship is. This is not shocking information, but it's when I would sit with residents and they would tell me things they loved, and then they would tell me things that they didn't love. I would ask them, well, what do you do with that when you're frustrated with a meal or you're disappointed that an activity, an outing got canceled? What do you do? And that collaboration of they weren't quite sure if they just, they would talk amongst themselves, but they didn't want to hurt the feelings of the associates by saying that, right? Because that's how much they cared for them and that connection. I mean, every resident satisfaction survey you do, what is the number one thing, right? Residents love about their community? They love the associates. And it's the same thing on the other side. So as an industry, I think we have so much opportunity to maximize that time where residents and associates are engaged, and all the behind the scenes administrative things, right? There's great opportunities to automate that and systemize that. So the importance of the community feel, residents, associates, families, the vendors that come in, we really are these little communities. And it was a cool opportunity to get to sit side by side with them.
So two things about that really strike me. The first is that over the years, I've stayed in a fair number of communities. Sometimes being a cheapskate, I've stayed in a community rather than staying in a hotel. Or I've just been doing a site visit, and it just made sense for me to stay. And the one thing that really has impressed me is I have not ever stayed in a guest room where they've gotten everything right, like a hotel would. There's always, missing washcloths, or I've got to ask for soap, or there's no Wi-Fi information. There are always little things. And it's such a powerful reminder that exactly what you said is the little things that matter. Now, the other thing I would say is I love this idea that people don't want to hurt the staff feeling. But the other thing I hear from people, I love your reaction from this, is I'll hear from residents who are grumpy, who are unhappy with their situation, and they don't know what to do about it. And what I hear a lot is they're afraid that if they complain, they'll be retaliated against. And that's kind of disturbing. First off, I don't know whether that's real or not. I've got to start by saying that may be only a perception. So I don't know, you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. That is disturbing, right? I would hope that a resident wouldn't feel that they would be not receive as great a services if they spoke up. And I'd like to think, especially here at Heritage, we talk a lot about transparency and visibility. And so if something's not going well, or we're having construction in a community, right, really making sure all the facts are given to the residents as proactively as we can. So if there is something they're frustrated with, they have information to be able to come and talk to us. And the other thing that we talk a lot about here too with our executive directors and community leaders is make sure we're talking to our residents, not just when there's a challenge, right? Get out to the social events and be present when there's family events. So that relationship is being built when there's positive, healthy things going on. So then when a challenge comes up, it's already a strong relationship, and that trust is built for a resident to be able to come in and say, hey, this wasn't going so well. What can we do? I think it's just like any relationship, right? You just got to build that connection and keep working at it.
Yeah. So you got into this business quite a period of time ago. You were fresh out of college, excited about it. Are you still as excited? What keeps you going today?
Oh my gosh, I'm really glad you asked me this question. So this is a book that I carry with me every desk, every office I've had for 18 years. And it's in 2008, I was managing a community as executive that was predominantly of Jewish faith, of Crystal Night, right? The Night of Broken Glass. And I had a majority of my residents that were Holocaust survivors at the time. And there was a wonderful photographer, David Radler, that worked with the Institute for Holocaust Education. And they put this book together. And Steve, the answer to your question is all of these sticky notes in this book, pages that I marked, every page is a picture of an individual. Those were my residents. And I've carried this for 18 years, office to office, because I had an opportunity to know them. I got to hear their stories. I got to serve them. I was there when their lives, when they passed on. And what an honor. I'm a little girl from rural Nebraska that, had never met anyone of the Jewish faith. And the fact that I got to be a part of their story and they're a part of mine, that's my why. That I love the core of what we do. Learning from our older adults, their experiences, their knowledge. It is truly a gift to be able to work with them.
Oh man, I love that story. I'm going to steal that story. I can see it being used in a keynote already. That passion, man, you made my day. You made my day. So, one of the things I like to ask guests, and I probably should have warned you about this one in advance, and you can take a pass on it if you like. But we learn. I know that in my life, uh, all of the best lessons that I've learned have come from failures and not successes. So, do you have a failure story that you learned something powerful from that you'd be willing to share with us?
Gosh, so many. Yes. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go with early on in my career. I had gosh, I've had so many. Maybe this isn't the best one or the most exciting one, but early on my career as a leader, right? I'm a people pleaser. I love people. And I had a dining director, right? So I was running a 150 unit community. Hired this dining director. It was charismatic, and I'm telling you, Steve, the man could make anything out of an ice block. He could sculpt that thing into anything, and we had amazing buffets and family events, and so he was doing a great job. Where he struggled was the staffing schedule, associate schedule wasn't always his thing, and I'd go into the dining room in the evening, and the dining staff were running around crazy because they were not scheduled appropriately, right? We didn't have enough team members. And so I'd kind of go in and I'd work and fix it, right? And I'd rescue that. And it got to be a pattern. That got to be my routine. And so I got to a point where I just kind of expected that from him, right? And what my mistake was, I wasn't communicating that. I was just going in and fixing it, right? Because I was a good executive director and I could handle that and take that on. And it got to a point where it was really getting very disruptive that I finally, in frustration, said to him, this isn't working out. You've had all these challenges and da 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 da, and I listed them off. And I remember we were sitting at the round table in my office, and he looked at me and he said, "Well, you never said anything." And I felt like a lifelong lesson of people don't read your mind, right? Clarity in expectations. Being clear is kind. Rescuing is not helping anyone. And what I've watched is when you're a strong individual contributor, you get promoted, right? And you take things on and you meet deadlines and you're committed and you have good customer service. And so you get the next job and now you're supervising people. And myself included, I was trying to use those same skills as an individual contributor, but now I'm leading a team. And now, 30 some years of doing this, I'm leading an organization. I had to adapt and learn new skills. I lead through influence and role modeling. I can't go in and rescue and help every community. And it was a hard lesson for me to learn, but it's one that if I didn't, I wouldn't be successful in this seat. And so it's something we talk about a lot here as especially in that executive director role, which I probably said that word 20 times already, because to me, it's just the most important, critical, and purposeful role we have in our organizations.
So I've got this long list of questions that I put together. I'm going to jump to the ones that a couple that I'll come back to. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about your pivot to third-party management and Sage Grow, and we'll come back to those if we have time. But I really want to talk about culture. It is the thing that I have been, workplace culture in particular, I've been passionate about since I started Foresight. One of my very public confessions is that, like you, so many others like you fell in love with the older people or fell in love with the grandmother. I came into senior living because I wanted to get rich. It's not really the best place to do that. My motivation wasn't originally very pure, but by the time I got into Foresight, my big passion was actually not older people, but it's the frontline staff. These people work so hard. They do such noble work, and they get so little credit. And I know that you are really, really focused on this whole culture thing. So, and I'm going to start by, I have a belief, and I feel like I'm about, not quite the only one, but almost the only one who believes that senior living does not have a staffing problem. We have a culture problem. And so I'd love to have you just talk about culture. Do you think that my position that we have a culture problem and not a staffing problem makes sense? Or do you think I'm ridiculous.
No, I don't think you're ridiculous. I think you're onto something. Many years ago in the industry, I would say things like, oh, we find the associate who can fit our schedule. We're not adapting the schedule for the associate, right? And it's all about residents first, right? I mean, I would preach that. I agree with you because I can't put the resident first if I don't have the right associate. So it's really this, what is the associate experience like? Because that will impact the resident experience. And while the executive director is running that ship and they are so pivotal, you're correct. It's the associates who make the everyday, the details, right? Like we were talking about at the beginning, right? They're the ones that know Marcy likes that bed, the duvet just a certain way, right? And the water needs to go on the left side of the bedside. So I think you, from an appreciation standpoint, right? I think our associates need to know how important they are, and they need to hear it from everyone, right? It's not just the supervisor. It's not just the regional when they come in. They need to hear it and they need to feel it in our actions. And so, making those connections with our associates. And then I think the other piece, Steve, is we have to invite new people and the next generation. We have to invite them to this industry and see how awesome it is. I have 3 daughters and they went to an all-girl high school, and so they did prom, with another boys' high school, but they came in and volunteered and helped, work one of our senior proms in our communities. And I'm telling you, watching those young people, right? This is not new information, but watching them get lit up, and just like I did, when they were meeting those residents and talking to them, and it wasn't scary, and they had things in common, and they're dancing together, right? When they have a glimpse of that, that's where we as industry leaders have a responsibility to invite them and say, hey, you can actually come do this for a living.
Yeah.
You can work with these folks. And I think if we empower them and help them see their importance in what we're trying to do, that's where you start to tip the culture piece.
So one of the things that's so fascinating about this, Amy, that I love in what you just described is that I'll frequently have conversations with sort of C-suite leaders in senior living, and I'll ask them, how's your workplace culture? And they go, oh man, it's great. And I know that it's not. And what I've come to realize is when they say it's great, what they're saying is my corporate culture, the stuff that happens in the office, the people I interact with every day, my regionals, maybe even my executive directors, they all are happy. But it's like there's this gap that they don't ever pay any attention to those frontline people. And I'm a big fan of Adam, the best-selling author, Adam Grant. But the thing that frustrates me about him is he's trying to solve workplace problems for people with MBAs who can go out and afford to buy a $10 cup of coffee at Starbucks on their way to work every day. And nobody pays much attention to those people. Yet you seem to have paid a lot more attention. Talk to me. How did you get to that point? And what are you specifically doing for them? I mean, you've already touched on some of that.
I only heard part of that, but Steve, I feel like I can read your mind a little, so I'm going to take a shot.
Good.
Well, I think so. Majority of my career, I was an executive director. I've been working at a home office level for just about 13 years now. And I will tell you, the only reason I chose to leave being an ED was exactly what you said. I had a great home office before. The organization I worked for was fabulous, and they were wonderful to me, and I had all the support. But you're right, there was this big disconnect. And these new initiatives and different things. And I'm like, I remember one time I just set it on the floor for a while. I'm like, this is nothing like what we really need. And so I chose to work at a home office because I wanted to see if we could close that gap and get the great accounting team, fabulous accounting team here, but help them understand how their role is impacting the communities. We work for the buildings. When I first came to Heritage, I flipped the org chart upside down. And I put the owners on the bottom. That was just kind of fun for very top, right? I put the community at the very top. And the rest of us We are working to make sure they can execute and take care of things. And it's little things that we do. Like Steve, we do this thing called Dirty Jobs here at Heritage. And so once a month, the home office team volunteers and they go work in a community. And we volunteer for the day doing whatever they want, raking leaves. We've done so many spring cleanups in courtyards. We've painted parking lot lines. We've cleaned out a pond. And there's many reasons for that. One is I want the home office to see community life, to see the driver go back and forth 18 times in a day and understand maybe that's why he didn't answer his emails right away, right? Because he's serving the residents. So I think the disconnect is something that if we stay focused on and we remind the home office team our purpose, and we are in our communities not to police, not to be compliance officers, right? But to support. And the goal is when we walk into a community, the community team is excited we're there. If they're happy that we're there, we're doing something right.
Yeah, when you do this, amazing things happen. My stepfather's in a residential 6-bed community, and one of his caregivers, Ashley, who I just love so much, she's so passionate and she's so caring. And I got to talking to her, and I don't know how it came up, but I discovered that she lives an hour away from this community, and so she's got to do this drive every day. And there have got to be 50 communities between where she lives and the place she works. Mm-hmm. And I said, why do you do this? And her immediate response was, look at this. Have you seen other communities? And so that's the possibility. That's what we can do when we get it right. She gets paid a lot more money than typically for her age. She works in a beautiful, beautiful environment. The owner is a friend of mine as well. He cares about his frontline people so much, and it makes a huge difference. So you have partnered with Stegen Leadership Academy, and you talk about a 15% reduction in staff turnover. Is that right? Talk to me about what you're doing, because this is not training for people up here, it's training for down here, right?
Right. So a handful of years ago, we started our own course called Manager Essentials. We take concepts from the book, Scott Miller's book, Everyone Deserves a Great Manager. And so that's kind of our core curriculum. And so the thought is, again, back to my individual contributors, we have great associates that we promote into leadership, and then we're disappointed with them when things aren't going well, right? So it's about a 7-week course that some of our home office folks in human resources, education, and operations lead. And every community manager across the company, we ask that they go through this course. And it's not just you sit and listen. At the end, they have a project, right? And so you don't actually graduate until about 6 weeks after the course is done, because what was your project? Is it you want to start holding genuine, authentic one-on-ones with your teams, and not just a reporting meeting? Steve, how are you doing? How are you feeling at work? Do you have, those types of one-on-ones? So that's something that we did for, community leadership there. Then the next level, yes, I am able to teach a foundational leadership course through Stegen Academy as a graduate of their 52-week integral leadership course. And so that's where we kind of take it to the next level, that it's not just about your community and your job responsibilities. It's about your own well-being. Are you taking care of yourself? What life skills and different things can we teach and practice that not only make living better at home, but living better at work? And that's Heritage Communities' mission is living better. But that doesn't mean just the associate or just the residents. It means our associates too. But the third area we're really wanting to hone in on is the emerging leaders, building a career path. So the Amy Birkel of the world, when they were 16 and a CNA and loved it, but really didn't know what to do, we can grab those folks and say, okay, what could your journey look like, and be willing to invest in that with them, not only from the coaching and the career pathing, but the resource standpoint. What does that look like?
So I'm listening to this, and so back up a second. If you one of the companies I really admire, not senior living, is NVIDIA. And if you are an electrical engineer, if you are a software engineer, you are any place close to an NVIDIA site, Silicon Valley, and they have some other locations. And somebody came and said, who would you like to work for? Probably 70, 80, 90% of them would say, I want to go to work for NVIDIA. They're doing really interesting work and they're making a lot of money. And I dream of that company be existing in senior living, where if I went to the senior living executive conference next week and I walked around and I said, if you could work for any company, who would you want to work for? Who would you want to work for? It sounds like Heritage might be that company. And this is so good. So our audience, leadership in senior living, I have this vision of leaders watching this and going, man, that's a company I want to work for. Or going, I want to be more like Amy and more like Heritage. Where should they start to make things better?
Oh my gosh. Well, I love all of that. And you're right. My ultimate goal is there's a wait list of associates, right? Because what that says to me is not just I can fill the schedule. It means that they have the purpose, they have the passion, right? That's core. And we can teach all the other things. So where do you start? Well, I mean, I would say reach out to me, number one. But no, start by like getting involved, go into a senior living community, right? Get involved, volunteering, right? And understanding your own strengths. I think the self-reflection piece is, where do you see yourself sitting? And if you're not sure, reach out. We all have human resources, education. I have an amazing director of talent development here that's just fabulous. And all day long, we want to hear from those folks. It's something that we're working to figure out how to reach them, like I was saying, and invite them in. But I'm telling you that everybody wants purpose and everybody wants to feel good about their day. And on my worst day, right? COVID, the labor crisis, licensing issues, right? On my worst day, I can easily pick out a shining moment, and it involves a community associate or a resident. I mean, how many folks in industries can say that? There's always some amazing component.
Yeah, I love you saying that. I mean, I think one of the gifts I have is I see so much beauty. I notice things, and I see so much beauty in such really small things. So often I'm sitting in my office here at home, and I look out my window, on the backside where you can't see, and I've got 10 chickens, and I'll see the chickens out there eating, and they just like makes my whole day, right? And then you have a resident interaction or a team member interaction where it's just like you just walk away and say, oh man, I'm making a difference in people's lives. And perhaps that's the thing, is that when you start realizing the impact you are having, it changes everything. So go ahead.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I know we don't have much time, but a fast little story. I created our portraits program several years ago at Heritage, and it's our Montessori-based philosophy program and memory support. And I remember sitting and practicing, right? I was learning how to implement these programs and strategies. And I was working with a very younger adult that had dementia, and we were sitting, and I had a purse, and we were organizing the purse, and I pull things out, and I'm like, should we keep this in the purse, should we not? And she was not always very verbal and attention, but anyway, I had a rubber duck, and I pulled the rubber duck, and I said, should we keep it? And she started to tell me about living on a lake, and her and her brother would sneak and go get the ends of the bread loaf, right, and go feed the ducks on the lake. And Steve, when I was all done and packed up, and she was still sitting at the table smiling, right? Still, her leg was bouncing up and down sitting. And I'm like, dang it, there's so much we can do.
That's right. So I have ducks.
I love it.
Yeah, I teach 5th and 6th grade kids at church, and I don't know why I use a lot of ducks and rubber chickens and all kinds of things to do that. Amy, this has been really amazing. I want to go forward. Where is Amy going to be in 5 years? Where is Heritage Communities going to be in 5 years? where's senior living going to be in 5 years?
Oh my gosh. I hope we're a destination people want to come to and don't feel like they have to, right? Steve, I'm sure, right? People know you work in senior living, your friends, family, anyone that they call you and they're always so sad and desperate. And I hate that for the families and the residents. So I hope that as our population changes, that folks desire to have this lifestyle and see it as a benefit, something you're striving for, right? For Heritage, we don't want to be huge, but we think we do a good job and we'd like to help more folks. We're at 24 communities today. Goal is, in 10 years, we'll have about 60, right? And kind of be a nice spot for us. So yeah. And I hope I'm right at the front of just continuing to work with our older adults.
Fantastic. So I've done a bunch of interviews this week that have been dynamic and wonderful. This has been by far and away, not even close, my most joyous one. And you leave me encouraged and excited. I look forward to seeing you next week. You're all going to be on stage on Monday at the Senior Living Executive Conference in Nashville. And if others are going to be there, I'd love to see you there as well. We'll be doing there a bunch of interviewing. Jada, who's producing the show, does an amazing job. She will be there with me. And so we're very excited about that. Before we go, where do people find you?
Oh, yes. Well, heritage-communities.com. Amy Birkel, go to my LinkedIn. And I would just love to hear, my email is abirkel at heritage-communities.com. And I would just love to hear from anyone. I love to partner with folks that care about this mission.
Cool. Amy, thank you very much. Jada, again, thank you for producing. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope I get to connect with a bunch of you in Nashville next week.